Hello everyone, welcome back to this video series. So in today's video, okay, we're gonna talk about what is cucumber, okay, and where it is used basically, correct, and basically why cucumber plays important role in automation, right? Then what is BDD? Okay, so a couple of things we're gonna learn about cucumber and BDD here. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, now now as you all know, okay, let's say we know core Java, correct? So let me say this is core Java. Okay, now on top of this, guys, okay, we of course we learned Selenium, right? So you also know Selenium, and Selenium uses Java. Now, using core Java and Selenium, we created something called as framework. Correct? So what we did, we created automation framework. Correct? Now, in this automation frameworks, of course, we create test cases, right? Then we pass test data to it. Then we create reports. We capture screenshots. We wrote reusable methods. Then we wrote locators and configuration information in the configure property, and so on and so forth. So in short, whatever framework we design, guys, okay, that is 100%, I would say, it's a it was technical, correct? It can only be read, okay, it can only be understood by people who knows Java, correct? That's the thing about this framework, right? If I give this framework to a functional tester or a UAT person or a manager or a business analyst, he may not understand this framework. He may not be able to maintain, or he may not be able to understand what test case we have written in this framework, right? Because test case whatever we created in this framework, they were all technical, correct? So as I said, so these are the people. For example, let's say functional tester, correct? Then you have BA, business analyst, then maybe UAT people, correct? Then maybe managers, and so on and so forth, correct? So basically non-technical staff of your project, they may not be able to understand this particular automation framework, right? But then how do they involve in this particular automation cycle, right? Because generally in any project what happens is that your functional testers, they write test cases first, and then you read those test cases. You as an automation testers read those test cases, and they create the automation test kits, right? But if you see, the test case writing task is a repetitive task here. They are writing it in ALM, any test management tool, and then you're gonna go through all the steps, and then you're gonna implement the automation code. And at times, most of the times, what happens is that the test case steps what they have written may not match up with your steps what you did in the automation. So there is a gap in between, right? So to overcome this gap, actually, okay, so to overcome this back, this the concept of BDD came in picture. Okay, what concept came in picture? BDD. Okay, so BDD is nothing but behavior driven development. Okay, that's the long form of this word. Okay, now this BDD, okay, so let me create a new. Okay, now this BDD, guys, okay, is a behavior driven development. Okay, let me write down BDD. Okay, now this BDD is implemented by, okay, different folks in the market, right? For example, one of the most popular implementation of BDD is nothing but Cucumber, right? Then you also have something called as JBehave, okay, like this, okay. Then spec flow is a C sharp implementation of your BDD, okay. What is this? Spec flow, and so on and so forth, right? Of course, BDD is implemented in Python, JavaScript, Ruby. Every language pretty much provides this BDD, okay, behavior driven development. We are interested in this Cucumber actually, right? So what is Cucumber? Cucumber is nothing but is a BDD framework basically, right? Behavior driven framework basically, right? now now in case of a Cucumber, okay, there are a couple of things we follow basically, right? Cucumber is of course is what, as I said, is a BDD framework, right? In order to use Cucumber, of course we need jars of Cucumber in our project, right? Generally we do configure build path and we import the jars, right? So if you want to use Cucumber, you should have Cucumber jars imported in your project, correct? The way you did it for Apache PY or extend reports or your Selenium jars, right? The same thing we have to follow for Cucumber, right? So let's go ahead. Okay, so let's first of all create Maven project. Why Maven? Because we want to define the dependencies of your Cucumber. So create Maven project and define Cucumber dependencies. Okay, so let's do that. So I'll go to Eclipse, okay, and I'm gonna create a project new. As I said, I want to create a Maven project, so I'll go to project here, okay, and I'll go to Maven, okay, and just say next, okay, create a simple project, okay. I'm going to define the project name now, com dot, let's say, cucumber dot learn, okay, like this, okay. This is how this is how you have to specify in Maven, okay. You can give any name, doesn't matter, okay. Single word will also do, but generally they follow this hierarchy, com dot cucumber, or let's say hyphen learn, okay, like this. Or maybe let's say if you're working on a project, let's say com dot amazon, okay, and then there you're doing this implementation, right? So I'm gonna say bdd dot cucumber, like this, okay. You can give it like this as well, okay. It's up to you what kind of project name you want to give. You can give like this as well, okay. And I'm gonna say replace dot with hyphen here. As I said, you can also give a single word and name here as well, group ID, artifact ID, and so on and so forth, okay. But this is a practice, people, you would see Cucumber projects created like this, okay. And you have to just say finish, okay. So you would see, guys, a Maven project getting created in my workspace. Do you see? So now any Maven project, as I have already explained, will have this kind of structure: source main Java, source main resources, source test Java, source test resources, right? Now this Maven project is having a pom.xml, correct? Now in this pom.xmls, I have to specify my Cucumber dependencies, correct? So let's do that. First of all, let me add a parent tag dependencies here. So how I did that? Just write down the word dependency, do control space, okay, and this is the tag basically, correct? And within this parent tag, guys, I have to include all of my Cucumber dependencies. So I have already kept in the notepad. I'll just copy them here, okay, and I will paste it over here basically, correct? Now where did I copy? Of course I know that in order to use Cucumber you have to use these dependency information in your POM basically, right? InfoQs Cucumber Java, InfoQs Cucumber JUnit, and JUnit basically, okay. At times, guys, you might have to include some other dependencies as well, but 99% these dependencies will work, okay. Now once you add the dependency, just say save. Okay, so if you see, once you do save, all the dependencies, in fact jars, are imported in your project under Maven dependencies. Do you see? By adding these dependencies, I have imported these jars automatically in my project, and they come from your M2 repository path basically of your laptop. Okay, so Maven has downloaded them in your M2 profile, and from there your Maven project is pulling those jars in your project. Correct? So my jars are there in my project, so my project is all set now. So let's go ahead with the structure. Okay, now whenever you're working on a Cucumber, you have to follow certain structure, right? Now first of all, let's understand the structure. What is that structure? Okay, so in case of a Cucumber, as I explained few minutes ago, right, we Cucumber would also involve people like business analysts, functional testers, UAT users. Okay, now in case of a Cucumber, what happens is that your test cases or test scenarios are written in something called as feature file. Okay, they are written in feature files. The feature file extension will be basically the name of your scenario. Let's say I'm gonna say here Zoho create account dot feature. Basically I have to create a file like this. Okay, so the test scenarios are written in feature file in Cucumber basically. Okay, now this Cucumber feature file uses certain language, and that language guys is called as Gherkin basically. Okay, in which language we write down the feature file? We write down the feature file in the Gherkin language. Okay, now then what happens, we basically link this feature file, okay, to our Java code basically. Of course then only it would be able to perform those actions, right? So what we do, we link this particular feature file or the steps whatever we define the feature file to something called as glue code. These are the terminologies guys, okay, which are you would come across whenever you are in a Cucumber project. You would come across this terminologies. Okay, so you have something called as glue code. So glue code is nothing but you're gonna write down certain methods. Okay, you're gonna write down certain Java methods within XYZ class basically. Okay, and you'd link these methods to feature file steps. Basically we're going to see how do we link and so on and so forth, right? So I have written a feature file, nothing but a functionality of my application, and I have linked that to my glue code basically. So of course when you work on a project, of course you will have multiple functionalities, so you're going to create a lot of feature files like this, right? You will have one feature file, two feature file, four feature file, and so on and so forth. Similarly you're going to also have one glue code, two glue code, three glue code, and so on and so forth. Correct? Because of course your project will have lots of functionalities. Now this third, so we learned about first term, that is feature file, second term, that is glue code, and there's a third term which is used in Cucumber, and that is the runner class. So you have created feature file, you have created a glue code guys, and there's something called as a runner class where basically you define the mapping of your feature file and the glue code basically in something called as runner class. Okay, so three terms: feature files, glue code, and runner class. Runner class is a place where you define where are my feature files located in my project and where is my glue code located. Okay, that's it. So I hope you have understood the high level overview of Cucumber here. Now let's try to implement, right? So let's create a feature file first, then your glue code, and then define the runner class. Okay, so let's go to my project. Now generally feature file, as you know, it's a plain English language file, right? So it's not a Java code, so we would create that under resources. So let's say new, create a folder, let's say features basically, like this. Okay, And then under this features, guys, create the first feature. How do you create a feature? Just say new file, and I'm gonna say here Zoho. Let's say create account dot feature. The extension has to be feature. Keep in mind, if you don't put this extension, then it's a problem. Okay, and just say finish. Okay, so if you see, this Eclipse has created a feature file template for me. This is a template, guys. Eclipse has provided you a ready-made template. Now, and if you see this file, it has got some icon to it. Okay, now where this template and icon is coming from? Okay, so to get this template and icon, whenever you create a feature file, you need to have certain plugins in your Eclipse. Okay, plugins related to Cucumber basically. Okay, so let me show you that. So you can go to your Eclipse marketplace. Just a second, it's loading the information. And you have to search for a plugin called as Cucumber for Eclipse. Okay, so let me write down Cucumber, hit enter. Okay, so if you see, you have to install this plugin in your basically Eclipse. Then this plugin is creating, this plugin is recognizing your feature file and it's giving you a ready-made template. If you don't have a plugin, it is not going to show you this icon, and this ready-made template will, you will also not get this ready-made template. Okay, see, this plugin helps. For example, if you do certain mistakes or if you do some spacing mistakes, you can select, you can format. So if you see this pretty format, these are the menu items which are provided by that plugin basically, right? Now let's move on. So if you see, I've created a feature file. Now this hash, if you see that lines which are there with hash on the top, these are nothing but comments basically. Okay, they are just giving you information that feature file will have an author, will use keywords such as feature, scenario, given, when, then. These are the keywords or annotations which we use while writing a feature file. Correct. For example, so let me delete this, or let it be. Okay, anyways, this is a commented line, so it will be ignored. Now guys, so let me make it very simple first. Okay, so I'm going to delete this one, and let's have a very simple feature. Just a second. Okay, so let's say I want to format. For example, I want to make it proper, so I'll just create a format like this. Now if you see, as I said, this is a feature file. This feature file is written in certain language, and this language is known as Gherkin. So if you see here, there's a word feature in faint green, right? Then you have a scenario, then you have a given, when, then. So these are nothing but Gherkin keywords basically, right? So you have to make sure whatever feature you write down, it's written in the Gherkin language only, then only Cucumber will understand. Correct? So now in this case, okay, let's say I want to verify. So what is the feature name? My feature name is, let's say, Zoho. For example, create user. Correct, is my functionality. So that's your feature. You can also write down description about your feature, that what this feature does and so on and so forth. Okay, let's not write down that stuff here. Now a feature, guys, can have multiple scenarios. Okay, for example, I'm going to say here, first scenario is that create user, create new user, let's say. Okay, this is one scenario. I can have any number of scenarios, guys. For example, I can have another scenario in this. Let's say create user, create user with existing email ID, like this. Okay, this is another scenario. Or maybe I can create, so a feature can have any number of scenarios, right? So I just created two here. Okay, so let's delete for a time being. Okay, I just showed you that it can have. Okay, now So let's say create new user is a scenario. Now given is basically a prerequisite. What is a prerequisite I want to have here? I want to say, let's say Zoho application should be up and running, correct? So that is my prerequisite, right? When, so given Zoho application is up and running, it should be is up and running. Any language you can use, okay, it doesn't matter, but it should look proper, okay. It should be readable. So Zoho application is up and running. I then basically I enter user details such as email address, password and name, right? Then I'm gonna say here user should be created. So I'm gonna say here new user should be created, right? So what I did, guys, my functionality basically is this one, Zoho create user. In this functionality I created a scenario. What is scenario? Create new user, and these are the steps which I am going to perform as a part of the scenario. That the given is Zoho application is up and running. When I enter user details, then new user should be created. So I created a feature file. Now guys, of course this feature file, as I mentioned, doesn't have any glue code associated with it, right? So what I did, the next step, created feature file under resources features folder basically, right? That's what I did. Now if I run this feature file, of course this feature file doesn't have any glue code or Java methods associated with them, right? So let's do that. So you can right click and just say run as feature file, cucumber feature. Okay, so if you see, guys, it is straight away gonna complain you here that, okay, so if you see whatever steps you have defined, it is saying that three steps do not have any definition, that the glue code is not present. So it's saying these are undefined steps. Okay, so you need to define a glue code, that is Java methods. Now this Eclipse has a plugin and it is very intelligent. So it has already given you the code which you can add straight away from here. Okay, so the code which you see below this, you can implement missing steps with snippet below. You can copy this straight away, okay, and go to your source test Java, right click, create a package, and let's say glue code, right? The name can be anything. See, these are the standard terms I'm using here, but you can also say step definition. Somebody can say my step definition. I'm saying a glue code. Okay, under this glue code, now guys, these steps are related to home page of your application. So I'm gonna create, right click, new class, and let's say home.java, right? Again, this is my understanding that these are the steps related to home. So I have created a home class, and under that home I'm gonna copy this missing steps on the right hand side over here basically, correct? Now see, it's a template again, so let's remove these unwanted lines first, correct, like this. Import this annotations, so right, just mouse over and just say import. Again mouse over, import. So if you see, these are coming from Cucumber, okay, like this. And now guys, so I have the feature file here, okay, having scenario, and for these scenario steps basically given when then, I have created the respective glue code, rather the step definition. And if you see, this is nothing but a method, what we already know, right? We learned in Java, and this method, guys, is mapped to this line of your feature file. Okay, if you see, Zoho application is up and running. This is the line we wrote in our feature file, and we are linking our method to this basically step of your scenario basically, or a feature file. Same goes here. I enter user details, so I have linked this method to this, then this method I have linked to, so and so forth. Now you can write down any flow basically over here, right? Selenium flow you have to write down over here. okay, like this. Correct, you need to write down a selenium flow. So just to demonstrate, what I'll do, I will write down sys out. Let's say this is my first step, and what is this first step I'm doing here? So application is up and running, I'm running here, right? I'm adding a sys out just to show you how it executes. Okay, then second one is, guys, you this is the second step, let's say, and I'm going to say here second step, correct? And third step is like here, guys. Okay, I'm gonna say here this is my third step. Of course, you are supposed to write down the selenium code as usual, whatever we have already learned. For example, I want to launch a browser here, right? So we generally do, we create driver equals to new of cron driver. That's how we do, right? You need to define this up here actually, okay, like this, okay, like this. Okay, so normal selenium code you need to write down. Okay, so I'll not write down that one here. Okay, so if you see now, let me save it. So now, guys, if I go to my feature file, I have a feature. Under that feature I have a scenario, and for this scenario I have defined my glue code step definition. So now if you see, now if I right click and run as a cucumber feature, you would see, guys, see, your feature got executed. And if you see here, this is what I did the implementation, right? So it got executed, the first step so and so, second step, this was the sys out I placed in my steps, right, in my glue code, and those got executed basically. Understood? I hope it's making sense, right? So if you now add selenium flow here, okay, your selenium flow would get executed as it is. Okay, now see, as I mentioned, if I remove these comments, my output will be more cleaner. So it's like this. Okay, and now if I just right click, just say run as steps, see, do you see? So this feature, it is executing basically. This is the feature. It has executed, correct? And this is the code which got executed from your step definitions, glue code basically, correct? Okay, now what happens in actual project? Of course you will be having multiple feature files, right? Maybe I've just written one, but you may have 10, 15, 100. Similarly, you're gonna create multiple classes with its glue code, right? So this structure will expand, correct? So I have home page. Maybe in future I'm gonna create a login page here, right? I might require multiple classes to hold the step definition, right, of the different features, right? So now the next question is, how do I run all these features and your whatever glue code you have mapped to it? How do you run them in one go, or how do you configure basically, right? So to do that, guys, we create something called as a runner class. So on your source test Java, you have to create new package and just say a runner basically, right? And here you can create any class. For example, run test. Okay, I want to run test, so you're going to create a run test class here. Okay, so what is this runner class? This runner class is basically, here you're going to define the mapping of your, let me put the comment, mapping of your features and basically glue code, as in where is my feature files located, where are my feature files located in the project, and where is my glue code, so that when I run this project, this runner class would locate those respective files and would execute, right? So let me put now this runner class, guys, you have to put some certain stuff on top of this runner class, okay, like this. Okay, now what does it mean? Let me explain. First of all, let me import. So if I just say right click, import, okay, just let me do that, right? So if you see in this runner class on the top, I have defined that here are my features located. For example, where are my features? Source, test, resources, features. So I have just specified features equals to, this is the path where my features are located. Then glue, where is my glue? It's under glue code. Now for glue code, you don't have to specify the entire path, guys. Okay, you can just specify the package name. And at the same time, you also want to create the reports, right? So in order to create reports, you have to, there are different types of reports in Cucumber. So one is the pretty format, or maybe you can create HTML reports as well, okay? Or maybe you can create JSON reports as well. Okay, so this is a fixed format, guys. Keep in mind, this is, these words is not something I have given on my own. No, okay. This is, for example, when you want to run a runner class, you have to provide a syntax like this: run this class with cucumber.class, and then with these options basically, right? Now what I'm going to do here, guys, if you see now, if I right click on this runner class, run test, and just say run as JUnit test. So your Cucumber always uses JUnit, keep in mind, okay? It's not using test ng, right? And if I right click, run as JUnit test, now you would see, guys, the same stuff which I was running through Cucumber now is getting executed through runner class basically, right? Do you see here? Okay. And on the left hand side, if you see, because of this format whatever I've defined, it's also creating some reports. So if you see under runner, so if you see, what was my feature? Zoho create user is my feature. Under that, this was my scenario, and this scenario was having so and so steps, and all of them got passed, correct? So if you can see, the feature is passed basically, correct? So I hope you have understood what is a runner class, right? And how it is useful, correct? So in this case, if your project has any number of features under this folder, and its associated glue code is also present, and if you run from this particular file, your entire project would get executed. Okay, so you have to right click and just say run as JUnit test basically, right? See, your tests are getting executed, and these are the reports basically, right? So couple of things from interview perspective. Okay, so here Cucumber doesn't use just test ng basically, right? So how do you run? You create a runner class, and in that runner class you specify these Cucumber options, and you right click and just say run as JUnit test basically. Okay, so this JUnit test would be executed with the help of Cucumber class actually, correct? So how do you, so how the batch execution is done here? So batch execution is basically running all features in one go. So that I am doing through runner class basically, correct? Now there are a couple of concepts such as tags. If you see tag, I can tag my features. I can say this is my regression, let's say test case, okay? And this is also let's say priority one test case of regression, right? So I can basically tag my features and scenarios. So what is the use of that, guys? Let's say your project is having, let's say, 100 features, okay? And then those 100 features are having, let's say, 200 scenarios, okay? Now at any point of time, let's say you want to execute only some regression priority one scenarios only, so you can group them with the help of tags actually. Okay, so tag is a concept in Cucumber. Okay, then there are some advanced concepts such as, for example, I want to run this test case, I want to run this scenario for X number of combinations. So how do I execute that? Okay, so parameterizations comes in picture. Okay, so there is scenario outline and so on and so forth. Then there are some advanced reporting techniques as well which are used in Cucumber. Okay, then there are some plugins available in the market which creates beautiful reports with pie charts and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is of course not the end of Cucumber. Cucumber has its own specialities. Okay, through this video I try to give you a high level overview as in what is Cucumber and how it is related to us. Okay, so in market, the framework which is developed around Cucumber is called as BDD framework. okay, BDD. And what the framework uses, it uses JUnit and Cucumber, of course, right? So here test data is generally defined in your feature file itself. It is not pulled through Excel sheet basically in case of a BDD. All right. So I hope um, this video has helped you to get high level overview of Cucumber. Okay. Anyways, I'll be sharing this code base. You can approach me for that, and you can refer to that module in order to go through it. Okay, and then the shared code base. All right, all right, guys. Thanks a lot for watching this video. Okay, goodbye.